Now today I've got the Titan finishing nailer here. This is one of the cheapest nailers around that I can find. This is a mains powered finishing brad nailer. It does from 15mm to 32mm brad nails, the 18 gauge nails. When I bought it, it's actually advertised as being up to 25mm nails, but on the side here you can clearly see it says 32. It does staples as well, although I've never actually used that functionality. The main positives of this nailer are the price. It is incredibly good value for money and incredibly cheap compared to all the other nailers on the market. One of the drawbacks that I find is the cord length. It's about 1.9 meter cord, which sounds like plenty, but if you've got high ceilings and you find yourself working on architrave and trim high up, you have to bring your extension lead part way up a ladder or a step with you in order to get this to reach as high as you need it to go. One of the other drawbacks of this nail gun is how loud it is. It's an incredibly loud nail gun, so you do need, in my opinion, ear defenders when you use it, although you can pick up ear defenders for just a few pounds. Overall, it's an excellent budget nailer, really good value for money, but if you can afford a more premium one, I would go more premium just because of the damage that it can do to wood, the extra work it creates by having to punch in the nails, sand down damage and fill. It just comes with a bit more work, so if you can afford, say, the DeWalt finishing nailer, that's what I'd go for. But if this is the only thing that's in your budget, it would do a great job. As I said, I used this for 18 months or so, doing lots of architrave around the house, and was overall pretty impressed with it. For the money, it's excellent. The loading mechanism is pretty simple. You just push down on this button here and magazine comes out, pop your nails in there, slide it back up and it locks in and you're good to go. I haven't actually ever had any jams with this. One of the drawbacks of it is because it's straight like this, it's harder to get into corners and things, whereas some of the more premium ones, you've got the angled magazine rather than the straight magazine. So it is a bit more of a challenge to get it into awkward places. And also this end piece here isn't particularly small, so getting it into those tight corners is harder. One of the safety pieces here is you've got this small nib on the end that has to be pushed up against something in order to fire. So currently I don't have it plugged in, but if that's pushed up, then you can fire. Otherwise, the trigger doesn't do anything. There is a power rating here, depending on what size nails you've got in there, but I almost exclusively use the 32mm brads in there anyway, so I just have it on max. You've also got on-off under here, but a bit unnecessary. Personally, I wouldn't start fiddling around with anything if it were plugged in, so I tend to just unplug it before I would try and reload it or anything like that. Never had any issues with overheating. Fire rate's fairly good. There's no bump fire mode or anything. You have to push up against something, then squeeze the trigger every time you want to fire, but for a DIYer, this is great. There's really no need to be having a bump fire mode. So here we've just got a piece of MDF architrave, just an offcut. So you've got this kind of smooth bit here, and then where it's been machined, not quite so smooth, and probably more prone to damage. And here I've got staples, just to demonstrate those, and the 32mm brads. So we'll start with 32mm brads. This nailer is very loud, so I would recommend ear defenders when you use it. Now it has got a safety feature where you have to, this little nib on the end has to be pushed down. One of the problems with the shape of this is it makes it hard to get into small areas, but that little piece of metal in the middle there has to, I'm not going to put my finger on it because it's plugged in, but that has to be pushed in for it to fire. So at the moment, nothing happens, but when you push it in, right, so I've just done a few different nails there with different levels of pressure from my hand. You have to put in quite a bit of pressure when using this one, unless you're not bothered about the nails being into the wood. So you can see these first couple here. This one is just ever so slightly proud of the surface, could easily be knocked in and punched in. This one is quite proud of the surface there. Again, you could punch it in. These two here, I pushed down quite hard on the nail gun as I was using it to try and get it to bury the nail a bit more, but you can see it does quite a bit of damage to the woodwork. Obviously nothing that you can't fix with a bit of sandpaper and 2-part filler, not ideal, especially on this softer MDF. And this one here where I didn't put enough force on at all, and it's quite proud of the surface. So next we'll give the staples a try. You probably wouldn't use this for this purpose anyway. These staples, you're much more likely to be using the staples for strapping down fabric over a chair seat or something like that. But just test it on this anyway, just for demonstration purposes. So you can see here it's done a fairly good job about sinking the staple into the wood quite deep. So if you had a bit of fabric under there, something like that you're trying to hold down, I think it would work well. I can't say I've ever actually used these staples for any real jobs. This is the first time I've actually ever used them, just for this demonstration, but they came with the gun, so they've always been in the box. So you can see, good penetration with all of them. Not too much damage on the back. And some close-ups of the front there. You can see that last nail on the right there, that didn't go in very far at all.